Right, let's start. So, as part of today, we'll discuss dynamic programming in Webdynpro. Hope it's audible to online. Done. Right, so let me create a Webdynpro component. Yeah, before that, what is the requirement is so far, so far, we are doing what static programming. Static programming is what in the design time itself, what the developer is has to do. First, we'll create what context. Okay, then in the design time itself, what we will do, we'll design the what layout. We'll design the layout and what bind the UI elements with different properties. Okay, this is what we are doing now in the dynamic programming. Okay, in the dynamic programming, everything will do it in what? Runtime only. Okay, in the runtime, we will create what? Context. Okay, in the runtime only, we will design what? Layout and what? Bind with what? Bind the UI elements. So everything will do it in what? Runtime. Understood? So by using this dynamic programming, we will we will have what? Better control. We'll have better control on the view what UI elements. We can make them what? Enable, disable. Okay, enable, disable. We can make them visible, invisible. All those things we can do it as part of what? This particular dynamic programming. Okay, so this is the requirement. What is the requirement? We should have a view. Okay, we should have a view. Okay, and this view should contain what? One second, please. Yeah, this view should contain what? One input field. Okay, it should contain one input field for entering the customer number. It should have one button, and it should have what? It should have what? One table. So this entire layout we have to create what? Dynamically. You can see here input field created dynamically and binded with the attribute what? Customer number. This label also should be created dynamically. Okay, and button also should be created dynamically. Table also should be created dynamically. So all these four elements: input field, label, button, as well as this table should be created what? Dynamically. Okay, and for input field, what is the context we require? Attribute na. So this attribute also I'm going to create what? Dynamically. For table, what is the context I require? Table is always binded with what? Node. So that also should be created what? Dynamically. Very clear? So the entire layout and the entire what? An entire what? Context also should be created what? Dynamically. This is what is a requirement. Make clear? So dynamic programming means combination of dynamic context and dynamic layout. So if you visualize this layout, what is the context we require? We require one individual attribute for binding with what? Input field, and we require a node for binding with what? Table. So first we'll focus on what? Creating the context. In the design time also, what we'll do? First we'll create the context, then we'll design what? Layout. In dynamic programming also, okay, first we have to create the context and then we have to design the layout. Okay, so this is the overall requirement. What is the validation here? By default, only input field, label, button should be what? Visible. Table should be what? Invisible. Okay, and after entering the customer number and then click on what? Button, check for the existence of sales orders. If the sales orders are available, then only we have to display the what? Button. We have to make the button visible and display the sales orders inside that particular button. So this is the overall requirement. Hope it's clear to everyone. Any questions, please ask me. Okay, so as usual, first in our SCAT, that is an object navigator, I'll create what one Webdynpro component. Let me log on to the server. Right. Right. So here in the drop down, I'll choose Webdynpro component. Let me give the component name. 24 is already there, so I'll take 25. I'll provide some description. I'll give the window name. I'll give the view name. Let me give the view name as what? V1. Okay, continue. So I'm just creating a default window and a default view. Done. So once a component is created, so far what you are doing, we are creating the context first. Either we are creating at the component level or we are creating at what? View level. Then we are designing the layout. So that's what we are doing for the last 24 examples. Okay. That is nothing but called as what? Static programming. Now what I have to do? I need to do everything what? Dynamically. Okay. So far we are going to the view level, we are going to the context tab, and we are creating the attributes and node under what? Root context. Now this context also have to create dynamically. So first of all, to create the context, I should visualize my layout. My layout requirement is what? I require one input field and one table. Input field is always bounded with what? Attribute, and table is always bounded with what? Node. So if you think of the attribute, how do we create the attribute in the design time? Okay, so what are the things we'll provide while creating the attributes? Just cross check here. I'll right click on the context. I'll try to create one attribute. I'll give attribute name as what? CST number. So what you will give? Attribute name we require, and we require the data type of that particular attribute. These are the two things I require: attribute name and the data type of the attribute. So this will follow when you're designing, when you're doing it in the design time. In the runtime also, I have to create the attribute context attribute dynamically by providing the attribute name and what? Attribute data type. Okay. So, and what are the attributes and nodes you create? It should be created under what? Root context only. You have to create under what? Root context. So what you have to do is just observe here. What is the first method called whenever we call a Webdynpro component? wd do init method. So I'll go to wd do init method. In the wd unit method will be called only once in the lifetime of what? Every view. So this context creation is also what? Only one time job. So what are the contexts I require for my view layout, I'll do it as part of what? My wd unit method. So how do we do it? First of all, you have to get the information of this particular root node. I have to get the information of the root node. So how do you get that information? Root node is represented by which interface? If wd context node, what is the object? Wd underscore what? Context. Wd underscore what? Context. So what you have to do is, if you go to that interface, if underscore wd underscore context underscore node, if you go to SC38, SC24, sorry, if you go to class builder, if you go to that interface, if wd context node, in this interface there is a method called as, yeah, there is a method called as what? Get node info. What is this method? Instance method returns meta information about what? Node. So what are the context attribute and node you want to create, it should be created under what? Under what? Root context only. So I have to get the information of what? This particular root context. So what to do is here, get the root node info. Okay, so what is the method I have to call? I have to call the method what? Get node info. What is the signature of this instance? I have to call it by using the object. So what is the uh, object of this interface? W underscore context. So if you see the signature, what does it do? It returns directly object of which interface? If underscore w underscore context underscore node underscore info. I need to receive it, so I'll say data o underscore node underscore info type ref2, so and so. I'll use a pattern. What is the root node object? W underscore context. What is that interface? If w context node. What is the method? Get node info, which returns the object of that interface. I am receiving that o underscore node underscore info. Done. If o underscore node underscore info is what? Bound. Okay, if it is bound, first of all I have to create what? One individual attribute, so that I can bind with this particular input field. So if you see this particular method, get node info is returning the object of this interface. Let me go to this interface. In this interface, you'll have one method called as what? Add attribute. What is this method? Instance. How do you call the instance methods? By using the object. In the previous step we got the object, so using this object I'll call the method what? Add attribute. So whenever you want to create a context attribute in the design time, what are the things we generally give? Attribute name and attribute data type. Here also if you see the parameters, okay, it is expecting one mandatory parameter, which is of what type? WDR underscore context underscore attribute info. When I double click on this, was what it is? It is a structure, I believe. If I double click on that, WDR underscore context underscore attribute underscore info, yes, it is a structure which has got some 23 fields. So I need to prepare a work area of what? This type. So what I'll do, let me prepare a work area here. I'll say what? Prepare what? Attribute info. So what I'll do, uh, data w underscore what? Attribute type what? So and so. What are the fields I have to consider in this? I require a name. I require the type name. Okay, absolute type name is what? String. Okay, type name and what? Type underscore name. So I'll give here, I'll say w underscore attribute hyphen what? Name equal to my context attribute name. I'll give it as cst number. Then w underscore attribute hyphen type underscore name equal to what? String, because customer number is what? Character type. So I'm giving it as what? String. So I prepared the attribute information. Done. What is the next step here? Add the attribute to the root. So using that root object only, I got the root node information. What is that? O underscore node underscore info. Okay, using that interface object only, I have to call which method? Add underscore attribute. Acha. I have to call which method? Add underscore attribute, which takes a work area as what? Input. So already I prepared the work area. Let me call that add underscore attribute. So I'll go to pattern. O underscore node underscore info. What is that? Node underscore info. What is the method name? Add underscore what? Attribute. Okay, attribute info is equal to w underscore what? Attribute. That's it. So understood. So I am adding one attribute, individual attribute with what name? CST number of type string under what? Root. How do you get this information? Okay, this is represented by which object? W underscore what? Context. Using that object, you have to call get node info. I'll get that root node information. Using that root node information, I'm adding the attribute. Done. That's it. No syntax errors. Any questions so far? Right. So this is one of the attribute I require. I have created it. Then what I require? I require one node so that I can bind with that table. Na? So generally, for the node, if you create the node in the design time, suppose here only, if you create the node in the design time, how do you create? Every node should have a node name, and if you are referring to the dictionary structure, we have to give the dictionary structure, and we have to give the cardinality. Okay, understood. So here also, if you want to create the node dynamically, so next step is what? Next step is create the node what? Dynamically. Okay, so I need to create the node dynamically. So how do you create the node dynamically? Says we have a what? A class called as cl underscore w underscore what dynamic underscore what tool. We have a class cl underscore w underscore dynamic underscore tool. Inside this class, yeah, inside this class, you can see here we have one start. What is this class? It is a public class. It is a public class. You can see the description here. What they are saying, help class for what? Dynamic programming. So SAP has given this particular class. In this class, we have one static public method, create node information from the structure. Okay, create node information from the structure. Okay, so here I'll go to this. Okay, this is the absolute, it seems fine, no problem. I'll call this particular method create node info from structure. Let me check the signature. Yeah, parent info. Yeah, you can see the parent info. There are some mandatory parameters. One mandatory parameter is what? Node info object. Then structure name is mandatory. E is multiple. If you want to bind it to a table, cardinality should be what? 0 to n. So it should be given as true. Okay, this is optional. And node name is also optional, but let us give the node name. What does it do? It returns the object of what? Same interface. Done. So now see the technique here. In the wd method only, I am creating the node dynamically. I'll go to pattern, abap objects pattern. What is the class? cl underscore wd underscore dynamic underscore tool. What is the method here? Create node info from what? Structure. Continue. Okay, so parent info is expecting what? It is expecting the object of which interface? If wd context node info, this node whatever you are creating, it also should be kind of the root only na? So root node information I got in which object? O underscore node underscore info. So let me pass that O underscore node underscore info. Structure name, with what structure you want to create? ZC what you want to display? Sales order. So ZCVBAK is multiple. Yes, abap underscore what? True. Okay, and a node name. I may require the node name also. So I'll give the node name as what? VBAK underscore node. And it returns. What does it do? It returns. It returns the object of which interface? Same interface. Here. New node returning object of same interface. So I'll receive that in the same object. O underscore node underscore what? Info. This is the way you create the node what? Dynamical. Okay, you can also create like this, or else in the same class. What is that class I shown? In the same interface, if underscore w underscore context underscore node underscore info. In this class only, earlier I used what? Add attribute. Here only I can create, I can call what? Add new child node, creates the info object and adds it as what? Lower level node. Understood? So just to introduce this particular class and method I went for this class. Otherwise also, just like how you are adding the attribute, add attribute. If you want to create the node, okay, here also you can see they are saying add new child node. Okay, so if you see the parameters, you pass the relevant parameters. Okay, is multiple, here also we have what is multiple. Okay, then what else? Name of the node. Okay, name of the node, like this you pass the relevant what parameters. Done. So I'm done with what? Creating the context. I repeat once again, what is the requirement? We have to create the context and layout also dynamically in the runtime. So this is my layout requirement. As per this layout requirement, to bind with the input field I require one individual attribute. To bind with the table I require what? Node. So I need to create one attribute, I need to create one what? Node dynamically. So what I did, in the context tab I have created nothing. I'm not doing it in the design time. I want to do it in the runtime. So what is the first method called whenever we call a view? wd do init. In the wd do init, I am getting the root node information by calling a method get node info. Using that return type object only, I am preparing the attribute information. So what is the information you require? I require attribute name and attribute data type. So how to add the attribute to the root node? By using this object I have to call which method? Add attributes. I'm adding the attribute. Then I require a node also. So for creating the node dynamically, we have a class what? CLWD dynamic tool. This class is a help class for what? Dynamic programming. So if you go back to that class, CL underscore WD underscore what? Dynamic underscore tool. This is a help class for what? Dynamic programming. So in this class, I used a method what? Create node from what? Structure. Okay, what they are saying? Absolute. You can also use what? Add a new child node. So I can just, you can go to this interface and I can call the method what? Add new child node. Done. So I'm done with creating the context. Let me check whether I'll get any runtime errors. Okay, cancel. Let me create the application first. Let me activate the component. Done. Oh, what happened? Okay, I not saved it. Yeah, now the application is created. Let me reactivate once again. Done. Let us test it. So whenever I test it, what happened now? The first method called is what? WD do in it. In the WD method only, we are creating one individual context attribute, one individual context node. So nothing will be there on the view. View is also what? Blank. I want to check whether I'll get any runtime error. No runtime error. Done. So what happened here? The context got created what? Successfully. Context got created successfully in the runtime, not in the design time. Understood? So in the runtime, I created one context attribute. What is the attribute name? CST number, and I created one context node. What is that context node name? VBAK underscore what node. And in the layout, nothing is there. I didn't got any runtime error. Na? The moment you start the execution, when the view is loaded, what is the first method called? WD do init. In this only I wrote the logic. Na? So it got, I didn't got any runtime error. So what is the meaning? Everything got what? Successfully created. Now what I have to do? I have to create the dynamic layout. So as of now, there is no layout. I have to create what? Dynamically. So if you are creating in the design time, all your UI elements you are creating under what? Under what? Root UI element what? container. Okay, you are getting under what? Root element container. This root element container is represented by a class called as cl underscore w underscore ui element underscore what? Container. Understood? Root UI element container is represented by a class called as what? CL underscore WD underscore UI element underscore what? Container. What is this class? It's a abstract class. I repeat once again. If you are designing the layout in the design time, all the UI elements you'll create as a child of what? Root UI element container. Similarly, when you design the layout in the runtime also, whatever the label, button, table you create, everything should be created as a child of what? Root element container. This root element container is represented by a class called as what? CL underscore WD underscore UI element underscore what? Container. Understood? So I need to get the object of this class. But what is this class? It is a abstract class. So somehow I have to get the object. Now the next step is what? Creating the layout dynamically. Okay. So whenever we call the view, what is the first method called? WD do init. After WD do init, SAP will call a method called as WD do what? Modify view. You can assume this is similar to initialization event. This is similar to at selection screen output. Okay, or you compare this similar to PBO event is triggered twice now, first time as well as what? After PA. Similarly, at selection screen output also will be triggered for the first time as well as what? After other events. Okay, so here also WD do unit method will be called only once in the lifetime of entire view, whereas WD do modify view will be called multiple times, first time as well as after other events, so next what I have to do here, I have to implement this particular method. What is the description? Method for modifying the view before what? Rendering, before displaying. So let me call it. Am I clear to everyone? So this method will be called multiple times. Okay, try to understand. Multiple time means, okay, first time when you are starting, when your view is getting loaded, view is getting what? Loaded. What is the first method called? WD do what? Init. Then afterwards it goes to what? WD do what? WD do modify view. What does it do? It displays the view. View is displayed to the user. Okay. Now on the view, user is performing some action. User perform what? Some actions. For example, you will click on what button. What is the event triggered? Yes, on action event is what? Triggered. When the on action event is triggered, what happens? It calls what? Corresponding what event handler method. This anyhow we know. Okay, after calling the event handler method, again it calls, the framework will call what method? WD do what modify view. Okay, and then it redisplays the view. This is what will happen internally. Am I clear? First time when you execute a Webdynpro component, the views will get loaded. When the view is getting loaded, what is the first method called? WD do init. Then what? WD do what? Modify view method. Done. View is displayed to the what? User. Once a view is displayed to the user, user will perform some action. Like you will click on a button. What is the event triggered? Yes, on action event, corresponding event and method gets what? Executed. After this, it will call internally again which method? WD do modify view for rendering the view, for redisplaying the view. This is what will happen. Am I clear? So now what I'll do here, what is the default activity you want? By default, only what? Input field, one label, and button should be what? Visible. The table should not be what? Visible. Okay, so what I'll do here, first of all the UI elements, we have to add it as a child of what? Root element content. So I should get the reference of this. This is represented by which class? CLWD element, which is what class? Abstract. Directly I cannot create the object. So somehow I have to get the object. So see what I have to do. I'll go to WD do modify view method. Double click on this. Done. This WD do modify view method contains some parameters. Where is that? Yeah. It contains some two parameters. See these parameters? What are they? First underscore time is what type? Boolean. And there is another parameter view which is of object of which interface? If underscore w underscore view. So what I want for the first time means when the first time this method is called, I have to create what? Input field, label and button and add it to the view. Na? So for that I'll say here I'll write the logic. If what? What? First underscore time is equal to what? Abap underscore what? True? If it is first time, then what? Do something. What is that I have to do? Yes, I have to get the reference of what? Get the reference of root what? UI element. Why you have to get the reference of the root element container? Because whatever the elements you want to create, it should be added as a child of what? Root only. Na? So that's why I have to get the reference of that. How to get the reference of that? There is one more parameter available which is the object of which interface? If underscore wd underscore what? View. Let me go to that interface. In that interface, if underscore wd underscore view, in that interface, we have one method. In this interface, we have one method. There's a method what? Get element. What is this here? Instant returns a specific view element. Instant method. How do you call the instant methods? By using what? Object. Object is given as a parameter only. Na? Object. Referring to nothing but what? Object. What is the object name? View. So using that, I'll call this method. Before I call, check the signature. Yeah, it takes what? ID as what? It takes what? ID as what? Input and returns the object of which interface? If underscore wd underscore what? View element. So see the technique here. I'll say data o underscore view underscore element. What does it return? Type ref to what? If wd view element. I'll go to the pattern. I'll call that method. What is the object given by SAP in the form of parameter view? What is the interface name? If underscore wd underscore view. What is the method name? Yes, get underscore what? Element ID. Okay, what is the ID of this? See, what is the ID of this? Yeah, I can see if I select this, what is the ID of this? Root UI element ID. Every this is also a kind of control. So what is the ID here? Root UI element container. So I'll say what? Root UI element what? Container. Okay, element is equal to what? If oh, sorry, what is that? Oh, sorry, O underscore what? O underscore view underscore what? I'm just going by the signature. Okay, done. But O underscore view underscore element is the object of what? Object of what? An interface. Na? But what I require? I require the object of which class? U element what? Container. Because all the U elements are child of what? Root only. Na? Root is represented by this particular class. But this method get element, when I pass the ID, it returns the object of which interface? If WD what? View element. So in the design time, it is telling that it is going to return me the object of this particular interface. So what I'll do, let me try to debug and check whether I'll get any information. So I'll say, I'll just debug it, save, check it, activate this. So see the technique here. I'll give the breakpoint here in the wd do modify view method. I'll also give the breakpoint in what? Wd do what? Init method. Okay, let me give the breakpoint here also. So I gave the breakpoints in what? Two methods. Wd do init and wd do modify view. Now when I execute this for the first time, Yes. What is the method which is getting called here? First method is what? WD do init. So it is creating that. I'll say F8. I'm not interested in this. I'll say F8. When I say F8, good. Where it is going? WD do what? Modify view. Understood? So far we are not implementing. That's why it is not stop there. But if you implement, it will stop there. This is the first time this method is called. Na? What is the value of first time? What? X. Nothing but what? Above true only. Na? If condition is what? Satisfied. It is enter the loop. It will enter the if block. Now, if you see this view element, try to understand. This method get element, what it is showing? It is saying that it is going to return the object of which interface? If underscore wd underscore what? View element. But in the runtime, when I say F6, see what is this? It is returning me the object of what? A class. What class? CL underscore WD underscore what? Transparent content. Am I clear? It is actually saying that it is going to return the object of what? This interface. But in the runtime, it will not actually return the object of interfaces. It will return the object of what? Implementation classes. Already we know, right? We cannot create the objects for what? Interfaces. It will return the objects of what? Implementation class. So what is the which class object is returning here? CL underscore WD underscore what? Transparent container. Am I clear? So I came to know by debugging that this method is returning with the object of which class? CLWD what? Transparent container. So see my technique here. Let me go back to this WD modify view. Yeah, here only. No, we should not ask that question at this stage. In any object-oriented language, if a method is taking any parameter of an interface, or if a method is returning the object for interface, doesn't mean that it will return the object of the interface or it will not take the object of interface. It will take the object of the implementation classes. What do you mean by implementation class? It is a class which implements that particular interface. So by debugging, I came to know what is the implementation class. By looking at this, I don't know what is the implementation class. So I want to know what is the class which is implementing this interface. That I can know only by what? Debugging. So what is the class it is showing in the debugging mode? CL underscore WD underscore what? Transparent underscore container. Let me open that and show. CL underscore WD underscore what? Transparent underscore what? Container. So if I open that, oh, TE I think. What is the spelling was transparent. Let me check like this. Yeah, transparent container. What is this class? It is what? Protected class. If you go to the interface, is it implementing that interface? Am I clear? So thumb rule in any object oriented language, if a method is taking object of an interface or if a method is returning the object of the interface, it doesn't mean that it will return me the object or you have to pass the object. You have to pass the object of what? Implementation class, or it returns the object of what? Implementation class. How do we know that implementation class means? Actually the technique is, one second, it got stuck. Just hold on please. Yeah, actually what you have to do, if you see this method, it is returning. If I double click on this, I can put the cursor, click on what? Various list. Instead of using the various list, I can debug and check now, so that I'll get what? Implementation class. So I know that in the debug it is returning the object of this class. So see what I'll do here. I'll say here, if what? O underscore view underscore element is what? Is what? Bound. What I have to do here? Typecast to what? Typecast to what? What? Implementation class. So I'll say data O underscore what? Transp underscore what? Container type ref to what is the class? CL underscore what? WD underscore what? Transparent underscore what? Container. Understood? Transparent underscore container. Done. Okay, so now what I'll do, see here, O underscore, what is this? O underscore transp underscore container. What is the symbol? Between interface and implementation class, you have to use this. What is this? Widening cast. Widening cast. Okay. If I use assignment, let me check will accept or not. What is that? O underscore what? View underscore what? Element. So save it. Check it. Yeah, I got an error. The type of O underscore view element cannot be converted to what? Type of what? So and so. So it is not allowing me because between the interface and implementation class, I have to use what? Widening cast symbol. So this I can use between superclass and what? Subclass. If you assign subclass object to what? Superclass, we have to use what? Assignment. So this will give me what? What? Syntax error. So to avoid that, I have to use what? Widening cast symbol. Okay. Save it, check it. Done. Okay. So now see the technique. If what? O underscore transp underscore container is what? Bound. Okay. So I got up to this stage, but actually what I require? I require the object of which class? CLWD what? UI element container. Am I clear? Because all the UI elements, whatever you create, it will be created as a child of root UI element. No? Root UI element is always represented by which class? CLWD what? UI element. Just like root context is represented by which interface? If WD context no, na, root element content is represented by class CLW element container. I require the object of this class. I cannot directly create the object because it is what? Abstract class. So now by using one of the parameter, what is that? View, I called the method what? Get element. I got the what reference of and what implementation class. I'm typecasting it. Now what I have to do? I have to okay. If you go back to this UI element transparent container, this is okay. If I go to what properties, who is the superclass here? Scrolling container. Let me go to scrolling container. For scrolling container, who is the superclass? Yes, am I clear? So I got the object of subclass. I require the object of which class? Superclass. Am I clear? I got the object of what? Transparent container. For this, who is a superclass? Scrolling container. If I double click on this for scrolling, who is a superclass? URL. So I require the object of what? Superclass. So what I have to do now? Assign the assign to what? Superclass object. So I'll say data O underscore what? Root type ref to what is the class? CL underscore WD underscore what? UI element underscore what? Container. Now what I have to do here? I'll say since it is the inner O underscore root is equal to what? O underscore what? Transf underscore. Now I can use what? Assignment operator. This is called as what? Hmm? Yes. Narrow casting. This is called as what? Yes. Widening cast. Am I clear? Between the interface and implementation class, we use what? Widening cast. Between a subclass and superclass, we use what? Narrow casting. Okay, so somehow I got the object of that class now. So now what is the next step here? Here, what is the next step? If what? O underscore root is what? Bound. If it is bound, then you have to create the rest of the things. Make clear? So now I got the reference of that U element container. Now what I have to do, if you go to this class, I have to add one element. Na? What is the element I have to add here? Yes, what is this? Input field. If you are creating the input field in the design time, what are the properties will generally set? Value property. Na? Yes or no? Input field is always binded with what? Is always will set what? Value property binded with what? Attribute. So here also I have to create the input field. How do you create the input field? In this class, you can see there is a method here. What? Add child. All the elements you have to create as a child of root only. Na? So what is this method? Instance public. How do you call the instant methods? By using what? Object. What is the object I got? O underscore root. So what is the first step now? Create the what? Input field. Understood? Right. Already in ALV reporting also I created one input field. Na? What is that class there? CL underscore SALV underscore what? WD underscore what? Input underscore what? Field. Ah? Yes or no? CL underscore what? WD underscore SALV underscore what is that class here? This is our normal thing. For earlier also I created this. What is that? CL underscore SLU underscore W underscore what? UIE underscore what? Input field. Now I require only this one. This is for ALV. See here. Input field in cells of what? But I am not in ALV now, right? I require a plain input field. Okay. So I'll go to a class called as what? CL underscore WD underscore what? Input field. What is this class? Can I create the object for this class? What is this class? Protected. I cannot directly create the object. So in this class, there is a static method. See, yeah. What is this here? Static public method. How do you call the static method? By using what? Class name. Public means I can call it anywhere. Na? So I have to call this particular method. What is this? New input field. What is the signature of this method? All are what? All are what? Optional. But there is one parameter here. There is a parameter. What is the parameter? Bind value, which is actually what? Optional. What is the property will set for the input field? Value property only. Na? So what is the corresponding parameter here? Bind value. What does it do? It okay. ID also, if you want, you can give the ID. Okay. And what else? It returns me the object of which class? Returns me the object of which class? Same class, na? Returns the object of what? CLWD what? Input field. So here I'll say what? Data O underscore what? Input type ref2 CL underscore WD underscore what? Input underscore what? Field. Okay, so let me create that. O underscore input is equal to O underscore what? Sorry, CL underscore else. Let me use a pattern. What is the class? CL underscore WD underscore what? Input underscore field. What is the method name? Add input field. Sorry, not add, new input field. Static method. Yeah, exporting. What is the important property here? Value property. Na? So we have property what? Bind value. I have to bind with the attribute. Na? In the init method, what is the attribute I created dynamically? CST number. Done. Then ID. It is always good practice to give the ID. I'll give the input as, I'll give the ID as IP1. Okay. Then all these are optional. I am removing all these things. Returns the object of the same class. Na? So I got the object O underscore what? Input. Done. Okay. So input field is what? Created. Understood? So I created the input field. Now what I have to do? What is the next step? Add the input field as a what? Child of what? Root. Okay, what is the root reference I got? O underscore what? Root. So in this class, just now I shown you one method. What is this? Add child. Instance public method. What are the parameters here? Index is any of what? Optional. Child. It is a of type what? UI element. This UI element can be of any type. Na? It can be input field, it can be a button, it can be whatever it is. So let me call this particular method add child. So I'll go to pattern. What is that? O underscore what? Root. What is the class? CL underscore WD underscore UI element underscore what? Container. What is the method? Add underscore what? Child. Okay, index is optional. Yeah, here I'll give o underscore what input. That's it. Is it clear to everyone? So first of all, I should get the reference of what? Root. Once I got the reference of the root, okay, I have to prepare the appropriate UI element. I created what? Input field. What is the important property for input field? Value. So I am binding with my attribute. It returns the object of the same class. That object I am adding it to the child of what? Root. Let me save, check it, activate this. Okay, so I'll debug, check what is happening. I'll put the breakpoint here. Let me also put the breakpoint in what wd do init method. Execute this. First, it will stop where inside what wd do what init method. I am not interested in this. What we are doing in the wd init method? We are creating one individual attribute. We are creating one individual node. F8. It is going to what? WD do what? Modify. So first time is what? True, yes, done. Then it returns with the object of the transparent container. As of now it is initial. When I call that method, yes, I got the object of what? What? I got the object of what? Transparent container. I am typecasting that to what? Yeah. Yeah, if you see this, I'm typecasting that. Done. Got the object of what? Transparent container. If it is bound, I require the object of the what? Super class. So when I say fi, then I got the object of which class? CLWD what? Transparent container. Done. Then fi, I'm creating the input field. What is the input field here? It is initial. Input field is what? Created. Done. I am adding that input field as a child of what? Root. When I say F8, I said F8. Let's see whether I'll get any errors. Ah, good. I got an error. What is the error here? Error in what? Flow layout. No layout data exists. No layout data exists for the child element what? Input field 1 of the U element container. No layout data existing. So simple understanding. Simple understanding. If you are designing the layout in the design time, what is the default layout here? Flow layout. When I right click, suppose just observe here. If I create an input field here, for any element you create, what is the layout it is taking here? See, where is that? What is the layout? Flow layout. Understood? Flow layout. So the default layout is what? Flow layout. So let me delete this. So when I'm creating the elements also in dynamically, I have to set what? Layout. So what I have to do here? In the same wd do modify view method. Yeah. Okay. So here I'll say what? Set what? Flow layout for what? Input field. So how do we set the layouts? Means again all the layouts will exist in the form of classes only. So one of the classes cl underscore w underscore what? Flow data. What is this class here? This class is what? Protected. I cannot directly create the object, but somehow I require what? Object. So again in this class also we have one static public method, new flow data, static public. How do you call the static methods? By using what? Class. Public means I can call it anywhere. So let me check the parameters. Yeah, done. Element. What is the U element you have prepared? Input field. Understood? Element is mandatory here. What type of view element? Input field. What does it do here? It returns object about flow data. I'm not interested to receive that. Let me just call that. So I'll just call the method. There is only one mandatory importing parameter element na done. Or else I'll use the pattern. I'll go to pattern, abap objects pattern. What is the class? CL underscore WD underscore what? Flow underscore data. What is the method name? New underscore flow underscore data element. What is the element? O underscore what? Input. I am not interested to receive this. That's all. Just leave it. That's all. So I'm setting the layout for what? Input field. It is expecting an element. That element can be any type. Now let me check whether the input field is available on the layout or not. Is it clear? So when I execute now, good. So what happened here? I got what? One input field which got created what dynamically on the layout. Is it clear? So what is the procedure I did in the WD to modify? If it is for the first time, I got the reference of what? Root element container. How to get the reference? The same method is having one parameter called as what? View. I am calling one appropriate method which is written in the object of the interface, but in the debugging it is showing the object of what? Implementation class. I have typecasted to what? Implementation class. But all the U elements are child of what? Root element container. Root element contains represented by which class? CL underscore WD underscore what? UI. Sorry, where is that? They declare that O underscore root. Yeah, this one. Okay, it is a what type? CLWD what? U element container. So I have to do the narrow casting. Then using that, I have to call the method add child. Before that, you create the input field. Okay, done. Input field is added. What is the next step here? Now you have to guide me. What I have to create? What is this? Label should be created what? Dynamically. So I have to check what is the class behind the label. So how do you check? All the controls exist in the form of what? Classes. CL underscore W underscore star. If it is ALV, you'll say what? CLV underscore what? UIE underscore what? Star. If it is not ALV, CL underscore W star. So I'll go for what? Label. CLWD label. What is this class? It is what? Protected. I cannot directly create the object. This class also contains one method called as what? New underscore what? What? Label. What is this method? Static public. Acha. So let me do it now. So what is the next step here? Yeah, here only what is the next step? Create the what? Create the label. How do you create the label? Check that signature. Acha, if you are creating the label in the design time, what are the properties you will set generally? Label for and text. Label for and what? Text. See the signature here. Yeah, you can see ID. If you want to give the ID, you can give what else? Label for and what? Text. Am I clear? Label for and what? Text. Okay, and what does it do? Here also it returns the object of which class? Same class, label class. That's why let me declare that. I cannot directly create the object because it is a protected class. Type ref to what? CL underscore W underscore label. I'll go to pattern, abap objects pattern, CL underscore W underscore label. What is the static method? New underscore what? Label. Okay, so here I'll set the properties. I'll just remove all these things. Yeah, ID. I'll give the ID as what? LB1. Label for. You want to set the label for input field. Na? What is the ID of the input field I gave here? IP1. Na? Right? I give the ID as what? IP1. So let me give the IP here. Label for is what? IP1. Done. Text. What is the text you want to give? Yes, customer number. It returns with the object of the same class which I am receiving. O underscore what? Label. Done. Okay. This label also we have to add it as a child of what? Root. Na? Let me add here. I'll just call the same method. How to add? Add child. So here I'll just go to this. Add the add the label, as a child of what? Root. So child is equal to, what is the label object I got? O underscore what? Label. But for every U element you have to set the layout. I have not set the layout for this. I may get the similar what error for label. Let me check. I got what? No layout data exists for the child element what? Label. Understood? So you have to call the same method. So what is that? This one. Set a flow layout for what? Label. What is the object I got in the previous step? O underscore what? Label. Understood? So what is the procedure? Create the element, set the layout, and add it to what? Root. Save it, check it, done, activate. Let me execute this now. Go. Okay. Mm. Very clear? I want it left hand side, right? So what I have to do? I'll give the index. I'll give the index. So what I'll do now is, when if you go to this add child, it is asking what? Index is actually what? Optional, na? So let me try to give the index. So where is that? Yeah, here. Index equal to what? I'll say what? What? 1. Let me check now. Good. Right? So I'm able to control it. Index 1, and this is automatically understood as what? 2. So we are done with what? Creating the label and what? Input field. What is the next step here? By default, I should also have what? Button. Okay, if you create the button in the design time, what are the properties you'll generally set? Text and what? On action event. Na? Text and on action. So here also, let me create the button dynamically. So somewhere here, what is the next step here? Create the what? Button. Create the button. Am I clear? Create the button. Yes. What is that? What is the class I need to refer? CL underscore WD underscore what? Star. So CL underscore WD underscore what? Button. What is this class? This button class is also what? Protected. I cannot create the object. So this class also contains a similar method, new underscore what? What? Button. Okay, static public method. What is the signature here? It has got so and so. Here also it returns me the object of what? Same class. So let me receive it. So I'll say here, what is this? Data o underscore what? Button type ref2 what? Cl underscore w underscore what? Button. Okay, so I'll go to pattern, cl underscore w underscore what? Button, new underscore what? Button, new underscore button. Yeah, check the parameters. id I'll give it as what? Something what b1. Okay, then on action event. Okay, I have to associate the on action event na? So I'll give the action name as what? Get what? Sales orders. Then text. What is the text you want to give? I'll give the text as what? Sales orders. Display sales orders. Okay, it returns with the object. I'll receive it. O underscore what? O underscore button. Rest of the two steps are same na? We have to set the layout and add it as what? Child of what? Root. So I'll just copy this. Set the flow layout for what? Button, new underscore what? Button, and add the button. Add the button as a child of what? Root. Index is not required. Child is equal to o underscore what? Button. Okay, same process for any UI element. Save it, check it, no errors, activate this. Good. So I got the button. Am I clear to everyone? Online? What is the next step now? Here I have to give what? Customer number. When I click on this, when I click on the, oh, when I clicked on this, I got a runtime error. Good. What is the runtime error? Action get sales orders, because I have defined it that action dynamically now. So I have to go to what? Actions tab and give that name here manually. Understood? What are the action name I gave here? That should give it manually here. What is that? Get sales orders. Get sales orders. Am I clear? Because here I gave the action name what? Get sales orders. It will search for the action called as what? Get sales orders. Okay, so done. Save it. Check it. Activate this. Done. Okay. Now when I click on the button, what is the event triggered? On action. Let me implement that logic in the on action event here in the event handler method. What I have to do? I have to read the customer number. I have to get the sales orders. So first step is what? What? Read the customer number entered. Okay. So what I have to do? Data LV underscore CST number. Type what? Type what? Kunnar. I cannot say here what? WD underscore this of what? Because I have not done it in the design time now. So you'll not have any declaration. So I have to refer to what? My database only. Type what? Customer number. Okay. It is where is that attribute available under root only na? So what is that? WD underscore what? Context. What is the interface? If underscore w underscore context underscore what node. What is the method name? What? Get underscore what? Attribute. Get underscore attribute. Name of the attribute what we gave in the init method. What is that? CST number. Importing value equal to what? LV underscore CST number. Done. Then what? If LV underscore CST number is what? Not initial, you have to do so and so. Else you flash the message. Already we know that flash message to enter what? To enter customer number. End if. Flash message to enter the customer number. If LV underscore CST number is not initial, what I have to do? Get the what? Sales orders for what? Get the sales orders for entered what? Customer. So I require internal table now, right? So I require internal table. So here I require the internal level for getting the data and storing that. That internal you have to bind with that node na. Where I am going to do the binding in the runtime when I click on this. What is the event triggered? On action. After on action, again it will call WD to modify na. So in that WD to modify only, I have to create the table and bind with that internal table na. So what I'll do is, shall I declare it globally? Mm, okay, let me declare it globally first, because I want it in the on action event handler method as well as in what WD do modify method. So I'll declare that globally. How to declare? T underscore VBAK. What is the table type we have? ZT. We have the table type now. What is the table type name? ZT VBAK. Let me cross check whether we are having that or not. Yeah, I'm having what? A table type with what? ZT VBA associates the same structure. So I can refer to that. So I'll say, so this is my, can I call this an internal table? Yes, because it is referring to a table type where it is available at the view level. So I can use it in all the methods of this view. So now I'll say select weblen date time from what? VBAK into table. What is the internal table? T and not WD underscore this of what? T underscore what? Vivek. Because I declare it as what? View attribute na. How do you refer to that? Prefix with what? WD underscore this into table so and so where what? Customer number equal to what? Entered customer number. LV underscore what? CST number. That's it. Okay, so save it, check it. So the data is there inside what? Which internal table? My global view internal table T underscore what? VBAQ. Am I clear? Now what I'll do is just observe here, here only. See the technique. I'll go to the attributes. I'll take one flag here, gv underscore flag, type what? Integer. Okay, gv underscore flag type integer. I'll say here immediately after the select statement, if what? Size of bar is equal to 0, I'll say gv underscore flag is equal to what? 1. So what is our understanding? If the data is available, oh, is unknown, na? Acha. I have to say what? Because I declare it as what? View attributes. I have to prefix with what? W underscore this. So what is the understanding? If the sales orders are available for the entered customer, I am setting the flag value to what? 1. So save it, check it, activate this. Clear? So I'm setting the flag value to 1. Done. Now, after executing this on action event, where the control will go? Again to what? WD do modify. Second time. Second time. So what happened here? Control goes to what? Yes, here only. WD do modify. So if condition is failed now, right? This if condition is what? Failed. So now what I'll do at the end? Yeah, here. Before that last end if here. What? Else means what? Second visit only na. So this is not what? First visit. Okay. Else what I have to do now? Yes, what I have to do? If what? WD underscore this of what? What? GV underscore flag is equal to what? 1. If it is equal to 1 means what? What is the meaning? Data what? If size of bar is equal to 0, then only I am setting flag equal to what? 1. So if flag equal to 1, what I have to do? Yes, I have to create the table now. Now I need to check whether I already created the table because I may enter multiple customers one by one now. So what I'll do now is here, okay, flag equal to 1, data is what? Available. So I have to create the table dynamically now. So how do you create the table means again already we have seen this class. Yeah, how do you create the table now? How do you are creating the button label input field? Same thing. What is that? CL underscore WD underscore what? What? Table. You have to use this particular what? Class. Okay. Anyhow, we know this process. Okay. So what I'll do is instead of going to this class, okay, instead of going to this class, let me go to, already we have seen this class, CL underscore WD underscore what? Dynamic tool. So earlier I used this class for creating the node dynamically. Now here you can see we have what? One static public method. What is this? Create table from what? Node. Creates a table from what? Node reference. Create table from node. What is the signature here? It takes a parent. Who is a parent? Root na? Who is the parent? Root. It is expecting the object of what? UI element container. Table ID I can give. Node reference. Okay. Node reference. I have to pass the node reference also. pass the node reference. So I'll try to pass WD context. Let me check what happens. Okay, I have to add anyone in the root only. Na? So I'll try to pass that. Returns with object of which class? Yes, table class. So I'll say here, see the technique. I'll declare one variable here, somewhere here, or somewhere here only. Okay, I'll not create this also here. Actually, this root also I have to create it globally. This root also I have to create globally. Where is that? This root, instead of creating here, I'll clear it globally. Here I'll say what? O underscore what? Root reference of what is the class? CL underscore why globally? We'll understand it now. Container. Similarly, here I'll say O underscore what? What? Table. Reference of which class? CL underscore W underscore what? Table. Now see the adjustments. Here I have to prefix it what? W underscore what? This. If O underscore root is bound, if W underscore what? This of O underscore root is bound, do so and so, done, done, done. Where I am calling the method, so here also I have to prefix it what? W underscore this, then here also W underscore this, W underscore what? This, done. So now see the technique here. I created the reference for the table class also now. Okay, understood. CLWD table. So here I'll say, if flag equal to 1 is what data is what available. So now I'll check if WD underscore this of what O underscore table is what not bound. Not bound is what? If not created. Now I'll create it. Okay, if not created, I'll create that. So I'll go to pattern. What is that class I have to use? CL underscore what? WD underscore what? Dynamic underscore tool. What is the method? Create table from what? Create table from what? Node. So create table from UI parent. Under what you have to add? Under root only na? WD underscore for table also the root is what? For table also the root is what? O underscore root. Table ID. I'll give the table ID as what? T1. Node. Under what you want to add? Under what? W underscore what? Context. Okay, done. What is the reference? W underscore this of what? O underscore what? Table. Done, 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 done. Okay, so now the next step is if what? W underscore this of what? O underscore table. I know this confusion, but we have to practice. If it is bound, what I have to do now? Bind what? Sales orders. So WD underscore this of what? Uh, oh, I'm sorry. This is a node reference now. What is the node reference here? Sorry. If it is not bound, get the reference of the dynamic node. What is that? VBAK underscore node. Data context underscore VBAK underscore node type ref2 if underscore W underscore context underscore what? Node. I'll explain this. Okay. WD underscore what? Context. If WD context node. If WD context node. What is the method name? Get what? Get child node. Done. Name of the node is what? VBAK underscore node. What is the reference? Context underscore VBAK underscore node. Done. So I got the reference. Here I should give what? What? Context underscore VBAK underscore what? Node. I am giving that reference, and then here what I have to do? Yeah, here. If it is bound, I'll say if it is bound, what is that? Context underscore VBAK underscore node of what? Bind what? Table. What is the global internal table? WD underscore this of what? T underscore what? VBAK. Okay, so let me check. Save it. Two if conditions are there here. If it is not bound, if it is not bound, I'm creating it. Done. Okay, and if it is bound, I'm binding it. Done. And this is for this if. Save it, check it, no errors. Done. I'll explain. First let me just try it out once, then I'll put the breakpoint. When I execute this, let me activate, test it. I'll give the custom number as what? 1000. Did I got any runtime error? No, no runtime error, but I didn't got the data because it is not visible. It is not visible, so I have to set it as visible. So what I have to do now is set the table to what? Visible. So in the table class, do we have any method for visible or invisible? Let me check. Good. Set visible instance public method. It takes boolean. Huh? It takes what? Yes, visibility. If I double click on this visibility is what type? It is a data element, I think. Yes, it's a data element which has got the domain. This domain has got some what values. What is this? Visible means what? 0 2. Invisible means what? 0 1. So I have to make it visible now. So I have to set it to what? 0 2. So what is the method? Set visible. So I'll say w underscore this of what? O underscore table of what? Set underscore what? Visible to what? 0 2. 0 2. Okay, done. Then I am binding it. Okay, done. Then what I have to do here, this is for the first time. If it is not bound, I am creating it. If flag equal to 1, okay, where is the else for this? Yeah, here only, na? So here, else means what? Else what? Data what? Not available. Data not available. What I have to do? What I have to do? Again, I'll check if what? W underscore this of what? O underscore table is what? Bound. Bound. And if what I have to do, set the table to what? Set the table to what? Invisible. So I'll say wd underscore this of what? O underscore table. What is the method? Set visible. What is that? 0 1. 0 2 is what? Visible. 0 2 is what? Invisible. So this will be made what? Visible. And here this will be what? invisible. So let me try it once again, then I'll debug and explain from the beginning. Oh, is not type compatible, boss. Why? It's numc only, na? Hmm. If I give like this, will it accept? Hmm? No, I think this is. That is the problem. I give space. Here I give some additional space. Okay, now let me execute this. Activate the entire component. Test it. I'll give 1000. What happened? I didn't got anything. Okay, so better I what? Debug this. So as usual, in the wd unit method, actually I don't require what? Wd method. Directly I'll go to what? Wd modify view. So just observe here. I'll put the breakpoint here in the if block, and for where is the else part here? Yeah, else part. This one. I'll also put the breakpoint here. Okay. So just observe here. Test it. Yeah, first time it is going to what? WD do modify. First time I don't want any table. Na? So when I say F8, then this is okay, fine. Now I'll give what? 1000. I'll do one thing, sorry. I'll also put the breakpoint in what? On action event. So that we'll understand whether we are getting the data or not. So I'll put the breakpoint here, done. And let me re-execute. Test it. Yeah, first time I'm not interested. I'll say F8 done. I'll give what? 1000. Display sales orders. Is it going to that on action event? Yes, it is going to on action event. Good. What is the customer number I entered here? How much? 1000. If it is not initial, then I'm trying to get the data. I'm trying to get the data into this internal table. When I say F5, oh, what is the value of size of RC? 4. It is getting what? Failed. But 1000 has got the sales orders. 1000 has got the sales orders. Now if you see, flag remains what? 0. Flag remains 0. Again the control goes here. Now if the second time control goes here. What is the value of flag? Equal to what? 0 means what? Data is what? Not available. Na? So nothing will happen. This table is also not created. So nothing is happening. So the problem is in what? Select statement. So what I will do here, if LV underscore, I'll say here unpack LV underscore CST number to what? LV underscore CST number. Okay, see what happens. Done. Let me re-execute. Right. First time I'm not interested. F8 I'll say done. Yeah, observe this. I'll give 1000 here now. Control goes to what? On action event. So control is going to what? On action event. See the value of custom number blank. When I say F6, how much? 1000. Now what I did here, if it is not initial, I am using what? Unpacked. LV underscore CST number I declared as type KN1 Kunnar. Na? In KN1 Kunnar it is character of 10. Na? So see the value. When I say 5 or 6, it is prefixed how many zeros? 6 zeros. Depending on the length in the table. Understood? Unpack function. Okay, so I got the bit. Now if you see this internal table, when I say F5, good. How many sales orders I got? 30. If sales orders are available, what I am doing here, I am setting the flag value to what? How much? 1. Okay, so when I say F8 now, where the control goes to now? WD do modify. Is it the first time? No, it is space. It's the second time now. Okay, so control goes to else part. Yeah, if flag equal to 1, is the data is available? Yes. Table also we have not created so far na. So if table is what I said here is not bound. If it is not an object, yes, initially there is no table available. What I am doing now, I am getting the reference of my node. I got the reference of our node, done. Then what I am doing here, I am creating the table what? Dynamically, it returns the object of the table class. So when I say F6, yes, I got the object of what? Table class. If it is bound now, yes, table is bound. What I am doing here, I am setting it what? Visibility to what? To. Is I got the table now? Let me check. Good. Am I clear? I got the sales orders. Now I'll give 1001. Understood? I'm giving 1001. Okay. What is the first sales order displayed here? What is the first sales order displayed? 15432. So I want to check whether the data is getting changed or not. I'll click on this. What is the event triggered again? On action. Control is going to on action. What is the customer number now? 1001. I'm using unpack function. Done. Prefix is what? 6 zeros. Done. I'm getting the sales orders. Already this has got how many sales orders? 30. These are related to what? 1000. Now I should get the latest one. When I say F5, yes, how many I got? One is getting refreshed now. Getting refreshed. Flag. What is the value of flag? Earlier what? 1. Now it becomes what? Again what? 1. Again it becomes 1. Done. Yeah, again control goes there. Done. If flag equal to 1, yes, flag equal to 1. Yeah, table is already created na. First time it was not bound. Now the table is already bounded na. So what I have to do now, if the table is already bounded, I have to just make it bind the data na. So did I wrote any condition? Yes. If it is bound, anyway it is, I'm setting what? Visible. Is it clear? Visible, and I'm binding the data. I'm binding the data. If the data is getting changed or not, that is, oh, access using what? Zero object reference is not possible. Why, boss? The problem is first time what happened is, first time this condition was what? Satisfied, is going there, we are getting the reference. Now second time the table is already created, so this become null because it is a local reference now. So I should declare this also as what? Global. So what is the change I have to do here? I have to remove this from here. I'll declare it as what? View reference. Context underscore what? VBAK underscore node. What is that? If underscore WD underscore what? Context underscore what? Node. Done. Okay. Now come back to this. Yeah. Here. Get into the global reference. What is this? WD underscore this. Done. Here also what? WD underscore this. If data is not available, I have to make it as what? Invisible. Done. Save it. Check it. What is the error? Done. Save it. Check it. Activate this. Yeah. See here. See the techniques here. Okay. I'll do one thing. Uh, yeah. If fly equal to 1 data is available now, so I'll make this as 0 again, so that next time it will not satisfy that way. Save it. Check it. Activate this. Done. Let me execute now. I'm just removing the breakpoints. Yeah, see the overall procedure now. So I still give the breakpoint somewhere. Done. Effect. Okay, I'll give what? 1000. I give the breakpoint. Done. I'll say effect. I got the data. Okay, I'll give 1001. Okay, I'll click on this. I'll say effect. Is it refreshed? 4971. I'll give 1002. Yeah, it is going there. Yeah, the data is getting what? Changed. I'll give 1003. Effect. Might be that 1003 doesn't have what? Sales orders. Okay. So I'll give again 1000. Again working. Okay. I'll give A 1000. Cannot be interpreted as what? The validation itself is what? Failed. Okay. So fine. Working fine. Understood. So simple logic here. When I click on the button, what is the event triggered? On action. Here I am what? Reading the customer number. I am getting the data. If the data is available, what I am doing? I am setting a flag to what? One. So second time, when it goes to WD to modify view, this if condition is not satisfied, control comes to what? Else but flag equal to 1 means what? Data is what? Available. Done. If data is available, I am setting the flag what again to what? 0. Anyway, it is enter the loop now. Enter the block. Now I am checking where the table is already created. If table is not bound means what? If not, if it is the first time, if it is the first time, what I have to do? I am getting the reference of the node and then what? I'm creating the table for the first time. Okay. Second time onwards, what happens? That if condition is failed, direct will come here. If it is bound, what I'm doing, I'm just setting it to what? Visible, I'm binding the data. Else means what? If data is what? Not available, again I'm checking whether the table is already available. If the table is already available, I'm setting it to what? Invisible. So entire logic I'm controlling inside what? WD do modify view. This is the way you work with what? Dynamic programming. Okay. So this program covers all the scenarios, creating the what? Context dynamically. In this I have created one individual attribute, also what? One individual node. And in the WD do modify view method, we have seen how to design the layout dynamically, how to create the elements dynamically, how do you control all those things. Make clear? It requires practice. It's not so simple. Do it what? Part by part. Okay. What you do is I declare them globally now. You don't declare them globally. See what happens. What happens every time? Once the control of comes out of the method, it will be destroyed now. So you'll have the runtime errors. To address that, I am keeping it what? Global, so that they are available throughout the view. Throughout the view. Done. Okay, so I'll stop it now. Any questions, please ask me. Okay. Chalo then. So I'll wind off. Practice this. Tomorrow we'll see how to provide F4 help. Okay.